Welcome to the Politicrat. I'm Omar Moore. It is Saturday, May the 1st, 2021. On this edition of the Politicrat, Karen Garner. This is America. I'll explain right after this. Welcome back. It is May 1st, and that's a good thing. Out of the month of April. It's really good to get to May, and just the last month was just horrible, news-wise for the most part. I don't know about your own lives personally, but I just think news-wise it was horrible. I mean, my goodness me. But look, bad news travels across months. It doesn't just stop in one month, it goes on. So I just hope that your month is better just generally, whether it's news-wise or personally, as we begin May Day, May 1st, 2021. Welcome to this edition of the Politicrat Daily Podcast. Thank you very much indeed for your listening ear on this Saturday, or whenever you may be listening to this episode. I am really pleased to know that you are listening. And I am Omar Moore, in case you did not know. So here we are, May 1st, and before I get to the main topic, I just want to mention a couple of headlines from the last 12 to 24 hours or so, if not a bit longer than that. One of the things that I came across here that jumped out at me was this headline from the New York Times, from a story dated April the 29th, 2021, written by Neil Vigdor, Vigdor. The headline, Idaho lawmaker accused of raping an intern resigns. Aaron von Erlinger, a Republican state representative from Lewiston, has denied sexually assaulting a 19-year-old woman after the two had dinner in March. That is the subtitle of that story from Neil Vigdor in the New York Times, April 29, 2021. Now, this is just evil stuff. An intern raped. This is evil. And I believe it happened. I believe this guy did it. That's my view. I wasn't there, and why would I be there? Why would I want to? Right? I would have tried to intervene and do something, that's for damn sure. But the whole thing about this is that this 19-year-old, this is just evil, This is horrible. You've got this violence, and violence against women continues on for centuries, and there is no protection. There's very little being done about it, and especially when you've got men doing all of this, and then on top of that, in this case, powerful men. This guy has not even been charged with anything. This is what, you look at this article, and it mentions in the third paragraph, he has not been charged with a crime at all. Now, how is that? And I know, I'm not being naive here, right? He should be charged. Why is he resigning? If you didn't do anything, as he puts it, and if he's denying it, as the New York Times puts it, why is he resigning? Is he resigning because he expects to be charged? Is he resigning because he knows he did wrong? Is he resigning because he doesn't want to look bad for the Idaho legislature there? That he would still be in the state legislature. It's not about looking bad for the state legislature. That's option. I should get that option off the table. This guy must have done this. He must have done it. Why is he resigning? And then there's lots of people who don't resign. after being accused or who have actually done something. They just stand in. Look at Cuomo. Cuomo has invaded the spaces at minimum. That's at minimum. That's just lights. That's minimum what he's done to several women, to at least 8 women, if not more, right? And he's still there as governor of New York. Apparently for Al Franken, though, Minnesota senator, he resigned. Forced out. Forced out. And what about all these other people? Roy Moore, the Republican, he didn't quit his race. Remember in 2017 or 18 when he was running? I think it was 2017. He ran against Doug Jones. And he never quit that race. All these allegations against him, pedophile, all this stuff. Oh, I'm going to stick in there. And he only lost by point something %. 0 point whatever. What is it with these people? But this guy resigns. He declined to answer. This is a censure, right? The committee, this is a committee, the Ethics Policy Committee in the House there in Idaho, said that State Representative Aaron von Erlinger, I think sounds like he's either Austrian or German in background, a Republican from Lewiston in Idaho, was found to have engaged in, quote, conduct unbecoming, in quote, of a representative. Conduct unbecoming? I mean, this is rape. Conduct unbecoming? I think you should be using stronger designations. So this committee has said that as part of a censure recommendation, God, if I could talk, as I am tripping over the words here, because this thing here, to the full House, that Mr. von Erlinger, who has not been charged with a crime, should be barred from office without pay for the rest of the legislative session. He should be barred without pay, and he should be fired. He should be absolutely excoriated and impeached out of there. And expelled. And it says, next sentence, the panel said it would also support a motion to expel him from the legislature, where he had served for less than a year. Now look, this guy should be expelled, and he should not be paid at all. This is the thing about the system, and I'm going to talk about this in a few minutes, that the system is such that it rewards people for doing the violent things they do, and pays them for it. We've seen this over and over and over again with cases with the police. They go on to different departments. They keep their pensions. They keep their salaries. Even if they do resign, even if they say, well, I'm going on leave, they get paid on administrative leave. They get paid. The guy, Rushin Shasetsky, or whatever his name was, that white male cop who shot and attempted to murder, shot 8 times into the back of Jacob Blake Jr. at point blank range, leaving him paralyzed for the rest of his life. That cop got paid, as best I know it, for 6 months plus, and returned to work, I think, last month or in March. A lot of these cops who get put on administrative leave, pending an investigation, they get paid. They get paid. I think, again, I really do need to look into this. Derek Chauvin, I believe, was getting paid until he resigned from the force last year in Minneapolis. And not only that, or they fired him. I forget which thing is he resigned. And the thing is that these resignations, they get to keep their pensions. And even if they get fired, they get to keep their pensions. They get to keep their salaries. And as I told you, dear listener, last month, if you remember the police officer in Buffalo, New York, Cariol Horn, who stopped a fellow officer from killing a man in handcuffs. She pulled a white male cop off of a man in handcuffs that white male cop was trying to kill with a chokehold, right? Sound familiar? And she started to beat the hell out of him, out of the white cop. So she beat the hell out of her fellow officer. Beat the heck out of him, right? Punched him in the face, beat him. Look, no, you're not going to do this to this man. You're killing him. And I'm not going to let you do it. She showed more guts. She showed more guts than any of those killer cops in Minneapolis did. And they sat there and watched and held down Mr. George Floyd as the defendant and murderer executed him. And they are all executioners, including Officer Tao, who really, all that was missing from him was the leather gloves, the folded arms, the so-called wife-beater shirt, and the black bag over his head with the two eyes in it. Executioner. Standing there, standing sentry. I mean, that's really all that was missing from these people. And here you go. You know? And it's just evil. These people get paid. And this disciplinary action by the Idaho legislature came a day after Mr. von Erlinger declined to answer the committee's questions about the allegations of rape during a lengthy public hearing in which he invoked the Fifth Amendment right against self-incrimination. So look, this guy is twice the age. And I know age doesn't really matter for anything, right? But when you think about this, a crime is a crime, right? Rape is rape. It doesn't matter who it's being done to. It's rape. It's a crime. It's violence. It's evil. And there need to be stiff penalties against anybody that does this. And we need to end this violence. We need to end this violence against women. We need to end this violence, period. Rape is something we must end. But I'm just looking at this. It's not but. I'm looking at this. Mr. von Erlinger, accused rapist is what I'd say. Or alleged rapist or rapist. He's 38. 38 years old. And he's having dinner with a 19-year-old. I assume it was just the two of them. And this rape or alleged rape happened in March of 2021. The alleged rapist or rapist resigned 2 days ago. And this is the same day that the ethics committee there recommended that he be suspended. Well, he should be expelled, right? He should have been expelled. Suspended? So this Republican resigned, pled the Fifth the day before, or whenever it was obviously the day before. Public hearing, Fifth Amendment. So why are you resigning then? Why are you invoking the Fifth? If you didn't do anything, why are you invoking the Fifth? I know from an attorney's point of view, and as an attorney myself, what you're doing there from a legal standpoint is you are avoiding self-incrimination because anything you're saying in that public proceeding may well be brought against you in a court action, in a possible criminal trial, in a possible civil case. So from a legal standpoint, he is invoking his Fifth Amendment right against self-incrimination to protect against any possible future legal proceedings that are administered against him. So if he is brought before a court of law in the future, if he is brought before that court, these statements may well be admitted in evidence against him. And if a judge does that, There you go. He may assert a Fifth Amendment right at any possible trial, but the question is he going to be even tried? Is he going to be indicted? He's not been charged for a crime yet. The rape or alleged rape happened in March of this year, 2021. It's now May 1st. This article that I'm reading about to you right now came out 2 days ago, April the 29th. The student intern, by the way, testified on Wednesday of this week before this committee in Idaho, in the state legislature. He claims, by the way, von Erlinger, I maintain my innocence of any wrongdoing of which I have been accused in this matter, let alone any violation of law, any law, rule, or policy of the state of Idaho or of this body. That sounds like a statement prepared by an attorney, don't you think? He also said that it would be difficult for him to do his job facing potential expulsion. Well, I think it would be difficult for the 19-year-old to continue on in her life and to enjoy her life the way she would like to. No one's talking about her, are they? Then he says here, quote, it is my hope that this action spares my good colleagues any more difficulty in this matter, the letter said. Oh, please. So this is a written statement from him. So it would be difficult for his so-called good colleagues. I mean, I know the Republicans are, nothing is beneath them. But it's just really rich of von Erlinger to write this letter and say, it is my hope that me resigning, because this action is referring to him resigning, spares my good colleagues any more difficulty in this matter. So wait a minute. It's difficult to expel someone who's been accused of rape. It's difficult. Well, for the Republicans, of course it is. I mean, they would expel a grapefruit or, before they would expel a rapist. I mean, this is it's a horrible analogy. You really don't do any good for yourself, mate, if you're doing that with rape. So I apologize. That's really offensive. And I apologize to everybody for what I just said. That's completely out of line. The student intern who testified before the committee on Wednesday told the House Assistant Sergeant at Arms that Mr. von Erlinger had sexually assaulted her after they had had dinner at a Boise, Idaho restaurant on March 9th, according to one of her lawyers. Instead of taking her back to her car, the lawyer said, Mr. von Erlinger drove her back to his apartment and raped her. Now, the article goes on to say, Mr. von Erlinger had previously told legislators in a private interview that his sexual contact with the intern had been consensual, according to the committee, whose members repeatedly admonished him on Thursday. Quote, his behavior has poisoned the reputation of all of us and tarnished and discredited other elected officials who serve. Representative Wendy Horman, a Republican from Idaho Falls, said during the committee's meeting. The committee's members, here's the kicker, said that Mr. von Erlinger, who is single, had engaged in a pattern of inappropriate conduct in the workplace, pursuing relationships with several female House staff members, some of whom were subordinates. That little piece of information would be important here for your edification, because it evinces, as we say in the legal profession, a pattern and practice of predatory behavior, of sexual harassment, of sexual assault, most likely, given what we're learning here, and of someone who is abusing their power in order to, quote unquote, get with a member of the opposite sex. And not only that, right? Because it could happen to someone of the same gender, same sex. Not only that, in addition to that, The fact that they are all subordinates further reinforces the whole MO of this guy. 38 years old, a 19-year-old that he apparently raped. Quote, the representative's aggressive tactics toward women are unsettling, Representative John McCrosty, a Democrat from Garden City, said during the meeting. This is the thing, you see. This is the thing. So it's not only one incident, as horrible as the one incident is, it's a pattern of behavior. And I'm telling you, he's only been in this legislature for less than a year before he resigned. So my whole thing is, what made him think that he could do this? And he had a pattern of doing this all in less than a year. That's what I would like an answer to. And I'll answer it. The system made him think that. It's a Republican-controlled state legislature, right? And Republicans murder people and stay in office. I mean, basically, that's what we're talking about here. That's what I should have said earlier, instead of the horrible, analogy that just is really just horrible. But they murder people and stay in office. I mean, the Democrats do too. Look at Ted Kennedy. Has anybody remembered Chappaquiddick? Yeah, I mean, basically, that's a murder, isn't it? If you've rescued yourself and you've kept a woman, Mary Jo Kopechne, right, strapped into her seat or whatever happened, I mean, in that watery grave, and you didn't take a step to try to save her? Come on. And he kept running, and he ran, and he became a senator. He became a United States senator. He ran for president in 1980 and really helped to destroy Jimmy Carter's chances of a second term with that bitter, bitter convention fight. That fight at that convention, which was essentially a brokered convention, that was a bitter fight in 1980. Cost Carter a second term. But again, it's the system. I'm answering the question that I asked. It's the system that made von Erlinger. God. Maybe I should just start from the beginning. It is the system that made von Erlinger, right, think that he could do this and not have to worry about anything. And the fact that he would write in a letter, it is my hope that my good colleagues are spared any further difficulty. You really can't script this, can you?
And it's too late, baby, now it's too late.
It's Too Late from Carole King. Oh my goodness, the album Tapestry. An iconic album. Honestly, that photo of Carole King, who is still with us, thank goodness. It's such a great thing to know that she and some of the other living legends we have are still, of course, here with us. And it's just so great. That photo of her on the album cover for Tapestry, it's just one of the most simplistic, and again, this is a compliment, one of the most simplistic things. It's a great photograph, and from a photographer's point of view, because I am a photographer, in addition to the other 1.5 million things I do, I love photography, and I do take lots of photographs. And I must say, just as a photographer rating this photo, and I don't know who took it, pardonnez-moi. It's an excellent photo. Look at the light. I mean, the light's a little bit overexposed. I don't know, but it looks good. It's just a great photograph, and the cat there in the foreground. Oh, go and take a look at Carole King's the photograph for that album, Tapestry, and of course the music is excellent. It's too late there. Not too late to enjoy Tapestry. It's one of the great albums of all time. I rate that as one of the top 20 albums in the history of music. In terms of the songs, in terms of the writing that Carole King has done, just brilliant stuff. Honestly, I would put that. Now, where would you put Carole King's Tapestry? I'd put that in one of the top 20 albums of all time. Let me know what you think, and if you care to, at politicratpod@gmail.com. The email address, once again, politicratpod@gmail.com. Please, I want to know, how do you rate Carole King's Tapestry? Do you rate that album as one of the 10 or 20, I'd say top 20 of all time? I do. Definitely. Really great album. Really good tracks on there. And that's one of them. I just want to finish up here on this guy, this alleged rapist. However comfortable, I would call him a rape. I just think this guy is a piece of garbage. And, as an attorney saying, this innocent until proven guilty stuff, that only applies to white men, doesn't it? Right? It doesn't apply to the rest of us. It certainly doesn't apply to black people. There's a presumption of guilt when we're walking the street, let alone being in a courtroom. So, innocent until proven guilty. That's why I said rapist / alleged rapist. Because I don't think this guy is innocent. In the courts, that's what we're told. But my goodness gracious me, dear listener, this notion of innocent until proven guilty only exists largely for white men. It don't exist for us. And it don't exist, certainly, for, overall, for black people and brown people. Period. We are presumed guilty if we just walk down the street. Never mind anything else. If we walk into a store, there's a presumption of guilt against us that white people are putting on us. At least many white people are, if not every single one. You've got store owners and people and black people and brown people even looking at you funny who work at the store. And I'm not talking about any everyday black people or brown, but people who are employees, they're looking at you, following you. So this notion of innocent until proven guilty, anyway, that's a whole another story that only exists for white men, especially white men in power. But this is what I wanted to finish off with, which I didn't get to. Erica Birch, the attorney for the teenager who was raped, said in an email on Thursday, this is still the same New York Times story, quote, "It is inexcusable that von Erlinger waited until his fate was inescapable to resign. While we are pleased he is out of the legislature and unable to prey on any more young women at our state house, his actions are simply unforgivable." I have to tell you, even that language to me is weak. From the attorney for the 19-year-old who was raped. Even that language to me isn't strong enough. Simply unforgivable? My God, that's the least of this. This guy's been doing this forever. And he had been in that position for less than a year. Miss Birch said that the intern, a college student who graduated from high school last year and had been working for another House Republican, had been further violated when a letter identifying her was released as part of Mr. von Erlinger's defense. Local media outlets reported that a former lawyer for Mr. von Erlinger had sent the letter. There you go. And if that's not the act of a guilty man or a piece of garbage, then I don't know what is. This is, again, from the attorney for the 19-year-old. 19-year-old. Von Erlinger, quote, Von Erlinger could have and should have taken responsibility for his actions from the outset. Instead, he forced our teenage client to suffer through weeks of the ethics committee investigation and ultimately having to testify in a public hearing. Worst yet, he released his written defense without redacting her identity, which has led to a campaign of harassment and bullying of her, end quote. So a second rape. This guy's a scumbag. Aaron von Erlinger is a scumbag and a rapist. And I hope he's not getting any pension. I hope he's not getting any salary that was owed him as part of his term in that office. He got in through being unopposed to replace a deceased Republican in that Idaho state legislature, and he ran unopposed. I hope he's not still getting money. And let me tell you something else. He better not be getting a pension. And you and I both know, however, that he's going to probably be getting both of those things. And he's not been charged yet. And if I were people in Idaho, which I'm not, but if I were in Idaho, I would be banging on pots and pans outside of the DA's office, outside of whoever's office you got to bang pots and pans outside of, and get this guy charged, because this is evil. And you can't let some scumbag, certainly not this kind of person, who I think is a rapist, you can't let that person just slip on out the back door. Oh, I hope that my good colleagues are spared further difficulty. Well, I hope you're not spared further difficulty, Aaron von Erlinger. You should be charged with rape.
Alright, let's stop, ma'am. I don't think you want to play it this way. Ma'am, please stop. You want to stop with lights on, siren? Stop. You just left Walmart. Do you need to be arrested right now? No. Okay. Let's stop. Come on.
I'm going home.
No, on the ground. Stay on the ground. On the ground. On the ground. On the ground. Bravo 242. After a short struggle, she's now detained. Come on. I am code 4.
Dad, I'm going
Hi.
home. I'm going home. I'm going
Quit!
home. I'm going
Quit!
home.
Are you finished?
I'm going home.
Hey, stand up. We're not going to hold you.
Just on the ground. On the ground. On the ground. Why are you doing this? Let's see if she is.
I'm going home. I'm going home.
Yeah, I know. I'm just trying to search her real quick.
Quick.
What? What are you doing? Get out of here. This is not your business.
You guys are okay?
Yep, we're good.
You're a little muddy, dude. I think we're doing
A little
inspection.
bloody, a little muddy. That's how it works.
Is the blood on her?
Yeah, that's our blood.
Oh, yeah, that's her blood. And, that is Karen, no less. And I am not joking here. That is Karen Garner. Karen Garner. That's who you just heard saying, I'm going home. Karen Garner is a white female who is 73 years of age. And I did say the word is because had she been a black woman, she would be dead. I would be talking about her in the past tense. Karen Garner, no relation to Eric Garner, I might add. Karen Garner, and a white woman. Karen. Isn't that interesting? But Karen Garner had her shoulder dislocated by these piece of garbage cops in Loveland, Colorado. This happened last June, by the way. The video only got released in the last week or two. And I just came across this video literally the last 24 to 48 hours. And I said, there's no way I'm not going to talk about this. And Karen Garner had apparently walked out, stole items totaling $13.88 from a Walmart and hadn't paid for them. So she stole them, okay? That's just another fancy way of saying she stole the items. Whether she knew it or not, she stole them. And yes, another piece of information, she has dementia. So that is material, but still, whether you have dementia or not, and this is going to sound very cruel to people who either have dementia or have people in their families who do, you're still committing a crime. It's irrelevant whether you know or remember or not to have paid for them. But it's material because, of course, that is something to look at. But again, it's not an excuse, and I'm not saying that. And I know that that's going to perhaps sound cold to some of you listening. But all of that is to build a picture here. 73 years old. She's walking home. Why are these cops breaking her shoulder, dislocating her shoulder? Why? She's not a threat. She's not threatened the cops. She's unarmed, because no one says unarmed white woman or unarmed white person, do they? They keep saying unarmed black people, like I've talked about this before. But again, Karen Garner has a dislocated shoulder. And boy, black folk, we'd wish to have a dislocated bloomin' shoulder. You telling me George Floyd wouldn't wish for that? Or Eric Garner wouldn't wish for that? Or Sandra Bland? Or Breonna Taylor? Or Dante Wright? Or Andrew Brown Jr.? Jesus crikey, don't you think they would have all taken broken shoulders? Dislocated shoulders? Adam Toledo? Don't you think he would have? But again, I make my point. But this does not, again, blunt my outrage at what these so-called Loveland, that's the name of the city. The cops are anything but loving toward Karen Garner in June of 2020 when this happened. And only just now has the dash cam, almost a blooming year later. We're talking 10 plus months later. Only now we get to see this dash cam video and the camera body cam video. Body cam video. How did it come and take 10 plus months to release this? 11 months to release this. 10 months. Happened June 26, 2020. How come it took 10 months? More than 10 months for this to be released. She had dementia. 73 years old. That tells you a lot about a system. It's working just fine. Isn't it? Because the people doing what they're doing are getting away with it. A little bloody, a little muddy. That's how it works. So your philosophy, officer Daria Jalali, that doesn't sound like someone who's a white Anglo-Saxon. That sounds like someone who has adopted white dominance and violence in a wall of blue and has said, yeah, this is my lot now. I'm going to be violent like the rest of these white folk. I'm going to be violent with them. Because that's how we roll here in Loveland PD, and that's how we roll in police departments across the country. And so she has gone into that system of violence and learned it well. And to fit in with the boys, she wants to be one of the boys. And therefore, to be one of the boys, you've got to be violent like one of the boys. And say things like, a little bloody, a little muddy, that's how it works. So that's how it works. Well, what works is a federal lawsuit on your ass. And now Jalali and the coward who broke her shoulder, Officer Hop, or broke Karen Garner's shoulder, they're all out of a job. They've all resigned. Now, why didn't Loveland PD fire their asses 10 months ago? I mean, it's just like what happened with this guy von Erlinger I was telling you about. Why did it have to be that he had to resign? Why didn't they expel him immediately? Oh, they're going to spare themselves further difficulty in this matter. Yeah, yes, I've raped a 19-year-old, but, I hope my colleagues spare themselves any more difficulty in this matter. It's just so arrogant and cavalier. And sociopathic. And then you've got a little bloody, a little muddy. That's how it works. We are a monstrous group, aren't we? Aren't we a monstrous country? If you're defining the country by how it treats the most vulnerable in the country, well, by some distance, we're a monstrous lot, aren't we? Are we not a monstrous lot? A 73-year-old with dementia. And you dislocate her shoulder, tackle her to the ground, throw her to the ground. I mean, they do this every day. I'm telling you, these cops do this every day. Every day they do this. They kill black people every day. They kill brown people every day. And then they do penny ante bullshit like this. Tackle some 73-year-old white woman, throw her to the ground, handcuff her, break her shoulder, and then say bullcrap like, oh, a little bloody, a little muddy. I told you they do this every day. Look what happened in Buffalo. I talked about Carrie Horn earlier, but look what happened in Buffalo last year, around the same time, by the way, that this happened to Karen Garner. Remember that 80-something-year-old or whatever-year-old white guy that got pushed to the ground? Head cracked open on the sidewalk there. The cop pushed him. Remember that? And the blood's trickling out the back of his head, through his ears and all. And I think that guy's brain dead now, or he died. I don't remember which. I'll have to check that. I'll check that before the episode is up. So you've got older, senior, I'll put it this way, senior citizen white male and white female individuals being attacked in broad daylight by the police. Now, they're still alive to tell the tale, but my point here is that the police are violent. And in all of these cases I've mentioned, there was no threat. none of the people I've mentioned in this episode in the last 5 or 6 minutes posed any threat to these cops. And yet all of them, certainly all the black and brown people I mentioned, were all killed. And the 2 white people I mentioned were thrown to the ground in one case, in both cases, handcuffed in one case, and their shoulder broken in one case. Nobody posed a threat. She was suspected of having $13.88 of... So she stole, let's say she stole the $13.88 worth of goods. I don't care if it was $138 worth of goods. This is not what you do to somebody. It's the system of policing that's got to go. And when we say abolish the police, as some do, I'd go along with that. This system ain't working. It ain't. It's not working for us. It's working for them very nicely. It ain't working for black folk. It ain't working for brown folk. And it definitely didn't work for Karen Garner, because her shoulder was broken, dislocated. Broke a bone and dislocated her shoulder. Begged for medical help, and she was behind bars. Didn't get help until hours later, according to the lawsuit. And she filed a lawsuit against him, a lawsuit. Absolutely, a federal lawsuit violating the Americans with Disabilities Act, because they certainly did that, right? Dementia is classified as a disability, right? And it is. And apparently there's going to be a independent investigation. An unbiased, thorough, and transparent criminal investigation will be conducted. This is from Gordon McLaughlin, who apparently is either the DA or he's running for DA. He actually is the DA, excuse me. He requested a criminal investigation. This is from a New York Times article called Arrest of Colorado Woman with Dementia Prompts Investigation, to be assisted by the U.S. Attorney's Office, U.S. State's Attorney's Office for the District of Colorado and the FBI. So Colorado and the FBI. So here we go. Again, Colorado, right? Colorado. Oh, Colorado. Colorado. What happened in Colorado? And I'm not talking about the recent terror attack mass shooting. What happened? Can we cast our minds back, dear listener? It just is so a year or so ago. What happened in, yeah. Elijah McClain. Actually, that was August of 2019. So, Karen Garner, still alive, happened less than a year after police officers in another part of Colorado killed, executed Elijah McClain, who couldn't have been nicer as a human being. And he had autism. He was black. He was 50 years younger than Karen Garner. Elijah McClain was 23 years old. Chokehold. Right? The interim chief of the Aurora, Colorado Police Department. This is from a July 4th, 2020 story in the New York Times by Maria Kramer, Kramer, last name spelled. Vanessa Wilson, the interim chief of the Aurora Police Department, said she fired the 3 cops on Friday morning for conduct unbecoming. Now, She didn't fire them because of anything to do with the murder of Elijah McClain. These cops were 3 cops who took selfies of themselves grinning and mocking the killers, mocking the death of Elijah McClain, mocking the dead lad. And that's what they got fired for. Now, I don't know if these are the same people who actually murdered him or not. Here we go. Another sounds like a Latino last name, Marrero. Erica Marrero, Kyle Dietrich, and Jaron Jones were grinning in selfies they took last October. Now, this would have been October 2019 because I'm reading from a July 4th, 2020 article from the New York Times, Maria Kramer. Again, Cramer is the last name. They were grinning in selfies they took last October. That would have been 2019. Near a memorial that had been set up in Mr. McClain's memory. Another photo showed Officer Dietrich smiling widely as Officer Jones wraps his arms around his neck. Officer Marrero is grinning in the background. You know, dear listener, I do tell you that foreign policy informs what domestic policy is for this country. And if you don't believe me, look at what happened at Abu Ghraib in Iraq in 2003. Remember the photos of Private Lindsay England and others grinning and smiling as they had Iraqi men on leashes, naked? Remember when they were standing there posing for pictures with stacks of bodies of naked Iraqi men? And remember when they and other U.S. service personnel were telling Iraqi men, go on, I want you to stick yours in him. Bum him up, won't you? Bum him up. And all this other heinous behavior. This has been going on for centuries. It's no different from that. It's no different from those white families standing there grinning and pointing at the dangling dead black people that have just been lynched by them or by someone else in the group. The photos of that. There's no difference. It's the heinous, evil nature of it all. From a system and from people in that system. People benefiting from it. The white population of the country. And some of the people who not only benefit from it and aren't doing jack about it, their benefits, and keep upholding their privilege and don't do anything to help black or brown people, but also who go and mock and pose next to dead bodies and mock everything and make fun of Elijah McClain being murdered. And then pose for selfies in it. And then sit there. That's the evil and the emptiness and the gutter mentality of these pathetic people. And they have badges and guns. It's no different from someone posing with some stupid sunglasses on top of his damn head while his knee is in the neck of a brother who's handcuffed, and there for 9.5 minutes is that knee in the brother's neck. It's part of the same evil of a system that's working real bloody well for all of these cops. And then the sin of it all, while some people celebrated 2 weeks ago like it was blooming Christmas in April. What they lost sight of is that Ma'Khia Bryant was murdered right around the time this verdict was being announced, and that Andrew Brown was murdered, executed, a day or so after this verdict was announced. And the system tried to make out that it was just Derek Chauvin. And he was a bad apple. It's not that they're bad apples in police departments. It's the system that is the rotten thing. Rotten for us, not so much for the cops who killing it. Because the system's working just perfectly for them, as intended. It ain't working very well for black people, brown people. Ain't working very well for a 73-year-old white person with dementia, or an 80-year-old or whatever how old he was in Buffalo, who was pushed to the ground, a white man pushed to the ground. And as someone said recently, a black woman said this, and I forget her name, and I'm sorry. If that's what they're doing to white people in the daytime, because both of these situations happened in the daytime, Karen Garner and the white man that got pushed down by the Buffalo cops, in the light of plain day, what the hell do you think they're doing to black people at night? Well, we know what they're doing. But all the ones we haven't seen yet. And if it took nearly a year for the video of Karen Garner, no relation to Eric Garner, to come to light, when and how long will it take before we get to see other videos of black and brown people being murdered by the police? It took 3 weeks for Adam Toledo's video to arrive. How long is it going to take? This system is the problem. It's not one or two cops, because there's more than one or two cops. It's a system that allows this to happen, and that keeps these cops on even after they're resigning, that they have to resign in the first place. At least Vanessa Wilson, the interim chief of the Aurora, Colorado Police Department, at least she fired these cops who did this selfie right away. Literally the day after, the next day, she fired them. But when the people who do the actual killings aren't being fired immediately, and then they're only resigning out of shame, knowing that if they resign, they get their pension, they get this, they get that. And even after they're fired, if they're fired, they still get these things. The key thing here is the police unions. The police unions, and I've mentioned this before here, dear listener, they have so much power. And the question is, how much power are they going to continue to have? And the answer to me is as much as lawmakers in these states give them, as much as the state and local legislatures give them. Yeah, all four of the officers in the assault and violence against Karen Garner have all resigned. But why did it have to be resignations? Why did it have to take a lawsuit filed by Karen Garner before they finally stepped down? This happened in June of last year. June 26th. Employees stopped her. Now, you heard some music in part of that. That was the narration of part of the video I played. And the audio you heard, right? So you heard there was some narration in there in subtitles. And what the narration said is that the Walmart employees compelled her back into the store to pay for the items. And she offered to pay for them, and they refused to allow her to pay for them. So what is that about? So you're more interested in prosecution than you are in dealing with a 73-year-old white person with dementia who is telling you, I want to pay for the items. I'm sorry, I stole the items. Can I pay for them? No, you're not going to pay for it. So you just escalated that. So now you got police involved. Then the police break this woman's arm. I hope she sues them. So this is the thing, right? And you heard this. The lawsuit says, as Miss Garner cried out and began to crumple to the ground in pain, this coward who broke her arm, oh, big He-Man, Officer Hop, he should be hopping to a jail cell, prison cell. He asked, quote, "Are you finished?" Then Jalali, Officer Jalali, who of course has learned well that to be part of a white dominant, toxically masculine and violent system, you've got to play like one of the boys, says, "Stand up, we're not going to hold you." So in other words, your frail 73-year-old body ain't going to be held up by us. We're going to let you crumple to the ground, so stand up. That is your policing in America in a nutshell, dear listener. That's your policing here. And if you listen to this in another country, you've seen plenty of videos that show how we do it here. This is how we do here in the United States. Let a 73-year-old crumple to the ground, break her shoulder, break a bone in her body, deprive her of medical help. We shoot black people dead. We don't ever get convicted for it, with one or two exceptions. And we barely get indicted for it. That's how we do here. You've got Georgia police using tasers on 87-year-old women. You've got black people in mental distress being murdered by police. You've got a black man with his hands on the steering wheel being shot in the back of his head by police in Elizabeth City, North Carolina. You've got a black woman in her bed sleeping, shot God knows how many times, at least 30 times, I think, by the Louisville Metro Police. Can I go on? Should I go on? Oh, gosh, listen to this. She had serious injuries, Karen Garner. Here's something you got to listen to this. Listen to this. A Walmart spokesman said in a statement that the store had called the authorities only because Miss Garner had, quote, forcibly removed an associate's mask. What planet are we living on? What planet are we living on? Are we living on planet Cuckoo Land? Or are we living on planet Earth? You called the authorities because a 73-year-old forcibly removed a mask? That's what you're calling the authorities for? This is a barbaric country we live in. Let's really be honest about that. And I know that some people are going to, maybe you as well, dear listener. I don't know if you live here in America or if you may be living abroad. But if you have American friends and you're living abroad, I don't know if you want to talk to them about July 4th and ask them at least what they're celebrating on July 4th. I know the immediate answer for many people is going to be independence, independence, independence. But what are you really celebrating? There was enslavement in this country while you're celebrating. Well, in 1776, enslavement was still going on in the United States. It was called America back then, just before it became the US of A in 1776. But the point is that, look, what are you celebrating on July 4th? And if you are living overseas and you're listening to me, dear listener, please ask your American friends, what are they celebrating? Can you really be celebrating very much? Whether you are here or not, domestically, if you're away, listening to me in another country, can you really, if you are an American, celebrate anything? When you're celebrating what exactly? That we don't have health care for all, Medicare for all? Celebrating what exactly? That President Biden put an extra $12 billion in the budget proposal that he released recently for military spending? Celebrating what? That we still don't have any real immigration policy except to throw brown people behind barbed wire concentration camps? And no one's talking about that anymore. Like, that doesn't happen anymore. Still happening. All of you on Twitter who were decrying this under the previous guy are silent now. I don't see any, and I haven't been on social media, as you know, I'm not, for the next few days. But where are the people who were so loud about Trump doing all this? And yet, has that situation stopped? No. Where's the evidence that it has stopped? Have they all been released? No. Show me the evidence where that has happened. You would have heard a big to-do about it, and Biden would have had a big-ass press conference and a statement about it if that had happened. Still going on. We are a barbaric nation. And we're just over 2 months away from the stars and stripes waving and the flag waving and the fireworks. People going back to business as usual. You know? Oh, let's open the state of California. Oh, Governor Cuomo in New York. We're going to get rid of curfews for bars and restaurants. But black folk, oh no, there's no curfew being rid of for them in Elizabeth City, North Carolina. Oh, curfews. Peaceful as anything. Oh, curfews. Oh, we got to board up the city now. Because those Negroes, oh my God. You know they're going to go get rough and tumble. I mean, that's what a tweeter said to me, right? I told you about this tweeter. You know? Oh, you're riling up the people. Oh, you want it like January 6th, and I hang with black women's lives. Did you hang with Ma'Khia Bryant's life? Huh? I hang with right there, when she says that in her tweet, this white woman, when she said that in the tweet to me, he knew something was going on there. That's all he needed to know. I hang with black women's lives. Do you? Do you hang in trees with black women? Do you hang in trees with black women? Do you hang with Ma'Khia Bryant? We're a barbaric country. And to say that is actually to be honest and actually wanting the country to be better. And it's not hating the country. It's actually trying to infuse something better into the country. And it's actually an act of love to say something like that. Because you want something better. And actually, if you hate the country, you don't give two fucks about it. Right? So you don't criticize what's going on in the country. Which means you're content with it. And you're very selfish and self-centered because you don't raise a fuss when Andrew Brown Jr. is assassinated. When Ma'Khia Bryant is assassinated. You make excuses. Oh, she had a knife. Oh, she had a knife. When there were better ways to deal with that situation. You act like you care about black women so much. You act like you care about people who have disabilities so much. And then you've got people like Karen Garner, 73 years old. You call the police on her. She removes someone's mask. That's your policy at Walmart. Well, you shouldn't be. Listen, any of you lot now listening to me should not be shopping at Walmart then. Oh, boycotts don't work. Yeah, they actually do, mate. Because they certainly worked in Montgomery in the 1950, 1955, 56. 380 some odd days. Rosa Parks, Dr. King. And they didn't touch Montgomery buses for over a year. Cost them a pretty penny, them folk running the transit authority there in Montgomery. Don't tell me it doesn't work. The function of whether they work or not is whether you're committed enough to make them want to work. Please don't tell me that boycotts aren't effective. They are. It's how organized you are. It's how committed you are. It is how passionate you are. Don't tell me that teachers in West Virginia weren't successful. That's a boycott. That strike is the same thing as a boycott, mate. If teachers in West Virginia 2 or 3 years ago kept out of the school system, the whole state, until they got better pay and until there were better facilities and until the drivers for the school buses and the janitors and the lot got better pay and better pay increases. Don't tell me that the boycott didn't work. That is a boycott. It's a strike, but it's also a boycott. They're not interacting with that education system until they get their fair share in wages. And what did the Republican governor do in West Virginia? Mr. Jim Justice. How ironic. After 9, 10, 11 days, whatever it was, he buckled. He signed the bill. He signed it into law to get these teachers and everyone else in the system better pay, increased wages. And he initially was, no, we're not doing it. Don't tell me boycotts don't work. They do work. They do work. If you've got commitment, if you've got passion, if you've got the energy to see it through and the organizing to see it through. And that's what's happened in these cases, right? That's what's happened. Those teachers were a hard line. Nope, we're not moving. And not only did it work in West Virginia, it worked in Colorado, in Arizona, in all these other states. They followed what West Virginia did, and they all went on strike as teachers. And it worked. They got their pay rises. Don't tell me these things don't work. It's like what James Baldwin said. You don't need numbers, you need passion. Passion brings you the numbers in the first place. We live in this numbers-oriented culture. Oh, numbers and classifications and what's this number? What's that number? But it's passion. That's what it is. That's what matters. And the people who organize systems through numbers know this. They know this. Numbers can be manipulated. Passion, well, that cannot be manipulated. And the people who run systems know this. Why? Look at all these voter suppression laws. That is designed to diminish and manipulate numbers of you and I voting. Republicans are doing this all over this country. Over 500 pieces of legislation at last count, dear listener, in 2021 have been passed or put into law or enacted or at least floating out there. Many of them in Florida and Georgia and Arizona, they're passed already. The die has been cast. And that's why we've got to wake up. Karen Garner is but one. How many other elderly ladies, white ladies, have they done this to? White women have they done this to? I told you, Georgia Police Department defending their use of a taser on a woman who's 87, a white woman, 87 years old. And when you've got all this militarization and you give these some weapons to use, some new toys to touch, they're going to try out their new merchandise, and they're going to try it out on anyone in the vicinity. They're going to give themselves a reason. I mean, this is like the 1960s with Karen Garner picking wildflowers. Flower child. I'm sure she was probably in that group back in 1967. Summer of Love. She would have been what? Teenager. Right? Right? That was nearly 60 years ago now. 54 years ago. She would have been 19, the same age as that intern who I believe was raped by von Erlinger in the Idaho legislature. He had dinner with her, 38-year-old and a 19-year-old right there. That, I mean, even before we get to the even more grievous aspects of, horrific aspects of all of that. 38 years old and a 19-year-old. What could possibly go wrong? A 38-year-old man and a 19-year-old. I won't even call her a woman at 19. I'm sorry, that's a kid. That is a girl. I'm sorry. Sorry, but 19, I know, well, 18 is the age of consent. Oh, come on. Oh, my goodness, you want to talk about unequal power? This guy was a state legislator in Idaho, going out for dinner with a 19-year-old intern in that same place. That's sexual harassment right there. You shouldn't be going out anywhere right there. That is already a harassment. I don't care if there was consent in that or not, but there definitely wasn't consent with what happened after that. Because here's what he's saying. Oh, well, it was consensual. Yeah, right. So why are you resigning then? Why are you resigning? And you've done it before with other 18 and 19-year-olds. And how come you were in there long enough to do that? So you were in there less than a year, and you'd been doing this all throughout. So where was the system then? Where were these senators and these committees then? Or these legislators then? They obviously looked the other way, didn't they? They obviously paved the way for him to keep doing it. They obviously did. I hope my colleagues will spare any more difficulties and blushes. While he kept doing what he was doing. Tell you that system, they aren't there to protect you. It's like human resources. I'm sure someone listening to me has experienced this. They go to human resources or don't. To those of you who go, well, why didn't they say something? Why didn't they come forward? Well, here's one reason. You go to human resources and then they back the person that you're complaining about. And then you find yourself without a job. Well, why didn't they come forward? Why are they coming out now? Oh, shut up. So naive, aren't you? People who say that kind of garbage about why didn't they come forward, so naive are you. You choose to be. The people who do that choose to be naive and malicious. You know damn well why people don't come forward. It's like that. They go to human resources, and human resources is there to back and defend the company. First and foremost, straight up. They aren't there to defend you. They're there to defend the company from lawsuits, right? They don't give a rat's ass about you. You're not irreplaceable. They got someone slide right up into your spot after they jettison your ass and keep the rapist or the harasser on the job and promote that person, promote that guy. Like in the military in this country, when they promote rapists and murderers. Oh, it's a great job you did there, sir. Why don't you have a corporal's badge or corporal stripes for your efforts? And they promote these people. Meanwhile, the woman who's been raped, what does she get? A campaign of abuse, a second rape. The military commanders who basically laugh in her face and say, get back and serve on post. Quit your crying. It's not a big deal. We're going to promote your rapist. That's what that woman gets. And gets more intimidation, more death threats, more fear, more isolation, more extra, being basically extradited from her own bloomin' platoon. Made a pariah of. Oh, come on. Don't talk to me about, well, why didn't they come forward? Why are they only coming forward now? It's despicable, isn't it? Karen Garner was 19 when the Summer of Love was going on. She was about 19, right? She would have been involved in that movement. And I'm not saying that she would have... I don't know. I didn't know who she was at 19. Unless you're related to her. Maybe you're old enough to know that. She's 73. Young. But in our society, we look at that as old, right? And we call her a senior. And people live their better... Don't you live a better life that you're supposed to when you're older? Yes, you have the health issues, of course. And the aches and the pains. But isn't there a certain liberation for some of us if we're fortunate enough to get to 73? Isn't there surely a certain liberation that we have? We are at relative peace with some things and maybe not with others. And she's just walking down the street. And some idiot at Walmart had decided to call the police on her. And I can't believe that, she took off someone's mask and now you're calling the police on that. No. And according to the narration of the video of the audio you heard earlier, it's very, very clear. She tried to pay for this stuff and they wouldn't let her. So you just wanted to escalate something with her. And then you used the excuse about her forcibly removing a mask. 73 years old. Oh, I should call the police for that. On a 73-year-old with dementia who suffered from, let me get to this here, suffered from disorientation and sensory aphasia. Aphasia, A-P-H-A-S-I-A. Sensory aphasia, or impaired understanding of spoken or written speech. Here we go. So there you go. No effort to understand, just like with Elijah McClain, in the same state, just over, roughly 2 years before. I'm sorry, Mr. Officer, I didn't mean to do it. I'm really a good person. And then they choked him to death. Great. Then you got cops mocking that. They get fired immediately. And then the fourth one resigns. Right? Then in this case, with Karen Garner, they all finally resign. Only because of the blooming lawsuit. Not because of anything else. And the Loveland, what a name for a police department. We love to kill and break the bones of people in this land. This land is my land. This land is Loveland. We break the bones of elderly Americans. This land is Loveland. This love is lovely. This land belongs to murderers like me. I mean, what is this? What is this that we're doing in this country? Killing black people who are complying with every command that a police officer bellows at us. Macing United States military lieutenants serving on duty in uniform, macing them, threatening, pointing guns at them. He's serving the country, and you point a gun at them. Black man, Latino, black Latino. Oh, yeah, you better obey, because I'm a veteran too. That's the response he got. You remember the brother. And they fired that cop finally. You wait until, and the thing happened months ago, and it happened back in December, and he just gets fired in April. Or March, I think it was April. This is crazy. He just gets fired in April. Now that the video comes out 4 or 5 months later, he gets fired. And that video has been lying around for 4 or 5 months. Wait, you didn't know there was a body cam? And one of the people in the Garner case here, not Eric Garner, I'm talking about Karen Garner, right? One of the lieutenants, when she was put in behind bars and was begging for help, the lieutenant one of these cops turned off his video camera. Her lawsuit, by the way, let me tell you something else I didn't tell you. There's a video of them mocking Karen Garner. I'm not going to play it. I'm not going to play the audio of it. So these Colorado cops, they love mocking the people that they break the bones of or kill. Whether it's in the case of killing Elijah McClain, who had autism and mental struggles. They love doing this on people who are mentally incapacitated or have difficulties or have autism. They love to do this to us. Elijah McClain, 23-year-old brother, dead. Oh, Mr. Officer, I'm so sorry. I'm just trying to go home. I assure you, I'm the nicest person. Those are basically the words he said before he was murdered by these cops, put in a chokehold. And now, 73-year-old white woman, dementia, aphasia, doesn't know which way is up, right? And she says, I'm just trying to go home. She was a block or two away from my house. Oh, you've got to break her bones. A little bloody and a little muddy. What kind of bullshit is this in Colorado? Well, it's the same kind of bullshit that's going on all over the country. You know this. You're probably fed up of me talking about it. But I'm not going to stop talking about this and raising awareness about it until this stuff starts to stop. Some of you say, well, it'll never end. Well, it's got to end. We've got to make it end. We've got to get rid of this system that keeps doing this. And when people are saying abolish the police, they've got some bloody good reasons for saying it. Oh, we can't have that. Ooh, abolish the police. Then who would take care of our communities when there's a criminal involved? The criminals are the police, though. Then what happens? Then who takes care of them when they go shooting up your neighborhood? When they go breaking the bones of 73-year-olds? Or when they go shooting up a car and shooting someone in the back of the head who has his hands on the steering wheel? Shoot him 5 times. Shooting a woman in her bed who's lying in her bed sleeping. Shooting her 20 times. Shooting a brother in his grandmother's garden in Sacramento, California, 30 times. Not getting indicted. So then what? Abolish the police? Yeah, why not? The ones who are doing all this killing, yeah, we should abolish those police. And we got to get rid of this framework around them that lets them go and get pensions and keep their pension and go to another police department. I mean, all these cops in Loveland who retired or resigned, they didn't get fired, by the way. Because they were on the video mocking what they did to Karen Garner. These same people. That video got released, and that video was from a few months ago as well. It's funny how these things come out months and months later, right? These pieces of garbage get to keep their jobs, knowing what they've done. System protects them. Then the video comes out after all this effort to get it out. You see what's happening in Elizabeth City, North Carolina. The judge there ain't releasing that whole video publicly at all. Family's barely seen it, right? 20 seconds of it they got to see. And they got fired, right? So here's what happened. They're all defendants, right? They all resigned. 3 of the officers resigned. And it's only because you were passionate enough out in the world, those of you this applies to. You opened your mouth, you raised your voices, and said, this is damn well disgraceful. A 73-year-old white woman, or any woman, being rather shoulder dislocated and broken. And you got video of them laughing at this. And it's because of people like you who opened your mouth, who got on social media, who demonstrated, who went out there and said, no, this is absolutely reprehensible. She's handcuffed in a jail cell, still. Begging for help. She's in pain. She's had her shoulder broken by these cops. And then one of the people disengages his video. One of these cops. Three of them resigned. They should have been fired right after this. Always these cops are resigning. Why aren't the system... I'm answering my own question here. It's rhetorical, really. Why aren't the system, and the system in this case being Loveland Police, why didn't they fire them immediately after what happened? Here's the article from the New York Times. 3 Colorado officers resign after arrest of woman sparks outrage. On Friday, Loveland's police chief, Robert Tyser, said that the 2 police officers who had arrested Miss Garner, Austin Hop, the He-Man Hop, he's the guy that broke Karen Garner's shoulder, broke bones. You know, what a hero he is. A profile in courage. You break the shoulder of a 73-year-old woman. You've got a real courage, buddy. And that guy, the reality is, he's going to end up on another police department somewhere. He's going to end up with his pension. He's going to end up with his salary and back pay. And Daria Jalali, not a white Anglo-Saxon Protestant name, right? That sounds like someone who has learned the ways. And again, you don't have to be a white male to support a system of white dominance and white violence and systemic white. You don't have to be. You can be black, you can be brown, you can be Asian, you can be, Officer Tao, the executioner, stood there as the defendant and murderer executed George Floyd. You had a black officer, or mixed race officer, as he's called. He kneeled on George Floyd. So, yeah, you don't have to be white. You can be Asian or black or brown in service of the same systemic white violence and white dominance and whiteness. That's what whiteness is not. Some people think that whiteness is about white skin. It's not. It's a doctrine. Yeah, it's controlled by people with white skin, but it's a doctrine that says that we will do everything to keep our system of violence in place and oppression in place. That's what that's about. Austin Hop, Hibbity Hop, He-Man. Oh, big man, I just broke the shoulder of a 73-year-old. Old enough to be my grandmother. Oh, aren't I famous? I'm so great. Put me in the Loveland Police Department Hall of Fame. Probably a very crowded Hall of Fame with people like that in it. And Aurora, Colorado Police Department, killing Elijah McClain in 2019. So Austin Hippity Hop and Daria Jalali, as well as a community service officer, Tyler Blackett. There's a footballer named Tyler Blackett, who is an African-American, who is a black man in England, not African-American. That's interesting. Oh my goodness, namesakes. Tyler Blackett, I think that's his name in English football. I don't know if he's still in there. But this community service officer named Tyler Blackett, who had booked Miss Garner, were, quote, no longer employed by the Loveland Police Department. Then the city spokesman later clarified that the officers had resigned. This is really disgraceful, right? So you didn't fire them. They had to resign. And they know that if they resign, their pensions are intact. Unless you change that and you say, hey, look, no, you do this, you lose your pension, you lose your benefits, you lose your money, you lose all of it. Master P, Philip, P is his first name, Philip. Master P. Metzler, who's a sergeant, who is supervising Mr. Hopper and Miss Jalali, has been placed on administrative leave. The chief said, well, my question is he being paid? And obviously he is being paid because they would have said unpaid. Administrative leave? Why isn't he fired? All 4 officers were named as defendants in a federal lawsuit filed by Miss Garner, which I talked about, Americans with Disability Act violation, excessive force, and failure to provide medical care. Absolutely. She's going to win that lawsuit, folks. A 5th officer named Sergeant Angelina Hill is still assigned to her duty. She's still there at the police department in Loveland. The lawsuit contends that Sergeant Hill and Mr. Blackett were both aware of Miss Garner's injuries and need for medical treatment and personally complicit in the continued denial of that critical care. Remember that the difference here is that Karen Garner was still alive. Eric Garner was not. When Eric Garner cried out for 20 times, it seemed, whatever many times, 16, I can't breathe, the officers continued. Daniel Pantaleo, who only got fired or was released from the force just last year or so, or resigned, whatever it was, he just continued to choke him to death. George Floyd, I can't breathe, I can't breathe. The murderer, Derek Chauvin, continued to stick the knee in his neck even deeper. And even when the paramedics got there, and George Floyd had already been dead for at least a couple of minutes, stone cold, this bastard Chauvin, this killer, had the knee still in his neck. The paramedics had to come up and tap him. That's enough. You've done your job. Seriously. And here, they just ignored Karen Garner. Tice acknowledged that the anger around her arrest has been stirred locally, nationally, and internationally. This is what I mean. You don't need numbers, you need passion. Passion brings the numbers. That's what I say. The numbers don't come first. First of all, you've got to get something that galvanizes the numbers to begin with. And if there isn't anything there, you ain't going to get the numbers. If you don't have a good campaign that you're running, you ain't going to get the voters. You ain't. And you've got to develop that passion, generate that passion, so that you do have people turn out. We know that there was a Democrat in 2016 who didn't have that. She didn't generate the passion. And so people weren't impressed. And they stayed home. The stakes were higher last year. People didn't stay home. And someone had a modicum of passion. And there was a vice presidential candidate that also brought some of that. Plus the circumstances, as I said. And people came out in droves during a pandemic. Our goal at the Loveland Police Department has always been to make our community proud, Chief Tice said. We failed, and we are very sorry for that. Yawn, yawn, yawn. Come on. Jesus Christ. Our goal, this is so psychopathic. Our goal has always been at the police department at Loveland to make our community proud. Oh, how proud are you? You go and, break the bones of a 73-year-old with dementia. Great. And in Aurora, right, which I don't know how far away that is from Loveland, you go and murder a black 23-year-old lad with autism. Great. Our goal has always been to make the community proud. Sarah Schielke, a lawyer for Karen Garner and her family, said the resignations were not enough. Quote, they were not fired, they resigned, she said in the statement. As, look, this is what I've been saying. Despite what the world has seen, okay, let me say that again. Despite what the world has seen, they did on not one, but 2 horrifying videos. They will still receive benefits paid by Loveland. Chief Ticer of the Loveland Police Department. Again, look, I told you, they're still getting their benefits. They're still going to get their benefits and their pension. And there needs to be something in the laws in these states to get rid of that for police. And I'm telling you, that will help. It may not stop all these murders of black folk and all of this garbage that happened to this disgraceful stuff. This is violence against this helpless person walking home. And you track her down and you throw her to the ground, break her shoulder, break her bones, and you handcuff her. Then you make fun of it. How freaking psychopathic are you? How much of a sociopath are you? God, how sociopathic is that? How psychopathic is that? Oh, and I heard her bones go pop. Ooh. Like you got turned on by it. These people love doing this. The system gives them the permission. I told you, it's a well-oiled killing machine. These people are still going to get paid. That's the system, folks. Chief Ticer, when he's asked about the footage, said at the news conference, and by the way, this happened nearly a year ago, and now the chief. Would you work a little harder, please, Chief? He's now all of a sudden concerned, almost 10, 11 months later. Oh, I share the community's concerns on this. It hurt to see that. What did it hurt to see? Your cops breaking the bones of a 73-year-old with dementia, or hurt that this came to light? What are you more hurt by? Is that what you're hurt by, that the world knows about it, or that your cops did it? Asked about the officers who were seen laughing at the footage, Chief Ticer said, quote, that is not the Loveland Police Department. The Loveland Police Department is comprised of men and women that are out there taking calls for service right now, that are working very hard and honoring our community. Oh, please. Where are they? Where were they condemning this? Hard at work. Were they working too hard not to condemn what they did to a 73-year-old? Break her bones. Handcuffing her, break her bones. And telling her to get up, we're not going to hold you up. And a little bloody and a little muddy. Where were the rest of them? Oh, that is not the Loveland Police Department. Oh, shut up. Shut up. The lawyer for Karen Garner, Sarah Schielke, criticized those comments and said Chief Ticer should resign. Quote, he is wrong, she said in an interview. Quote, it not only is the Loveland Police Department, but it's his Loveland Police Department. He's responsible for what happens in it. I totally agree. But the system is responsible. Even beyond the chief. The system is responsible. Thank you very much for listening to this edition of the Politicrat. I'm Omar Moore. Dear listener, you have to go right now. Please, I want you to go to the Politicrat Daily Podcast online store because there's so much there waiting for you. So much. T-shirts, hats. I mean, that's just the tip of the iceberg. And then you've got hoodies and pens and mugs. oh my goodness me, it just never ends. I mean, you can get lost in there. You really can. So much more. Drinkware. Socks. That's right, socks. I mean, if you want to get fitted and kitted, this is the place to be. The Politicrat Daily Podcast online store. Shop there right now at the-politicrat.myshopify.com. That's the-politicrat.myshopify.com. Thank you for your support.